So that's kind of as a treatment, but it can also be used as a well-being, as a process of well-being. You know, we concentrate very much on treatment, but why not stop it? But, you know, stop these issues before they arise. So what we did last summer was set up a course for all the tired, burnt out NHS workers in London and Cornwall. And again, we found that we looked at markers of burnout, and this was improved by the swimming course. And we also looked at mental well-being, and this was improved in these cases. So it works also as a kind of a well-being thing. And this is the kind of input this is the kind of feedback. So, you know, it's all well and good, you know, what funding bodies want and what people want to do is the numbers, but that doesn't give you the full picture. You get a much richer picture by taking the more qualitative stuff, you know, people's actual lived experience, as it were. And these actually come from a survey I did with mental health swims, but they are typical of all the courses we run, all the feedback we've got. We had this kind of thing, you know, it's happier, so much happier, giant boost in confidence. And this confidence thing is a really important part of it. So it's not just about the feeling good, you know, getting the buzz from the cold water. It is about the confidence you develop. And I remember Sarah saying, you know, at the time, you know, this is the kind of the most difficult thing or the most challenging thing I've ever done. And people get a lot out of this boost in confidence. But the other things is the other thing we often get is it resets everything, tidies up the inbox in my mind, and creativity, peace, health, all this kind of thing. And then also makes me feel more positive, and I have connected with like-minded people. So this is really interesting. You know, there's a lot we can explain in terms of physiology. But again, you know, like the numbers, it doesn't tell us everything. What it's good to do is look at you know, what is happening in the body, what's happening in the brain. I mean, the brain is so phenomenally complex. We're probably never going to be able to fully explain what's going on in the brain. And really, does it really matter? I mean, this is my whole approach to this research has been starting from the top down. You're saying, well, I'm not really so bothered. I'd be really interested to know exactly how it works, but more important is, does it work? And it's the same with the brain. And I then, a year or so ago, I came across a talk TED talk by Jill Bolt Taylor, which really sums up how I experience it now, how I think other people do from the feedback we get from all our courses. Now, Jill Bolt Taylor, this is from a TED talk, multi-million TED talk in the US. So she's an American neuroscientist. And one morning she woke up and she thought, I'm having a stroke. And the strange thing was, she said, but she didn't care. She actually felt really good about it. And of course, that's a bit odd. But what she realized was happening, possibly after the event, well, actually, I think it was even during the event, I'm not sure, was that the stroke was derived from a clot, a sort of bleeding on the left-hand side of the brain. Because she was saying the energy of my spirit seemed to flow like a great whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good place to be if you're having a stroke, and kind of what you might not expect someone to think, especially someone who knew what was going on. But the reason for this is that the left side is what goes on in the left and the right hand side of the brain. So what goes on the left side of the brain? It gives us our sense of self. It gives us linearity, you know, a sense of time. It gives us order. It gives us fear as well. And these are all very important things. But if you block that out, you lose all that and you move everything to the right-hand side of the brain. And this doesn't care about stuff. You know, it's all about the present moment, the big picture. It's empathy, you know, why people feel at one with the world, you know, and it is much more visual. So what was happening was that her left side was cut off and it was just the right side that was functioning, and that's why it felt so good. And so since then, I mean, it took her 4 years. You wouldn't know that it took her so long to recover. I mean, she's just so articulate. but it took her 4 years of intense therapy to recover. And what really motivated her was that she wanted to share this with other people. And her work now is towards getting people to help people live take a step to the right. That's the key phrase, and live a more peaceful life with a more balanced brain. And, does this meditation, there are many things you can do. It's not just cold water swimming, but it really describes what I think those people were describing from the courses that we've done. And it also describes my own experience. I just, when I work in Norway, I've got a 15, 16 kilometer cycle to work. And just before I get to work, there's this beautiful lake. And I stop there, I get there, my brain is all sort of chat. And I'm really hot and sweaty. And I get in that water, I come out, and it's just phenomenal. It's exactly what she's describing. The world, it's a wonderful place. And and it just feels so good. So I think this is what is happening. It's moving our brain from the left to the right. But inflammation has an effect on lots of things, not just the brain, and not just the brain, not just on mental health. So it worked for depression and anxiety. So the next thing was, we thought, well, maybe it has, there are lots of conditions, all of life, all of modern day illnesses have really got some kind of connection to inflammation. So perhaps the cold water swimming, cold adaptation could work for conditions which are linked with inflammation. So these include type 2 diabetes, migraines, arthritis, high blood pressure, multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease, all these things. You thought, well, maybe it has an effect on that. Now, we couldn't go out and actually start studies in all of these. So what we did instead was send out a survey through the Outdoor Swimming Society to see, well, we know that people are out there self-medicating, as it were, with cold water swimming. So what are they doing with it? And we kind of expected, I kind of expected 30, 40, maybe 50, 60 responses. We ended up with over 900. And what was particularly gratifying and made us feel particularly smug was that the conditions that came back from people mapped perfectly what we had predicted. I mean, the greatest number was anxiety, depression, mental health, and that was the majority. But the smaller bits of the pie, they were all the kind of things that we would have expected from the inflammatory theory. And what was even better is that the vast majority of people were getting at least some benefit from the cold water swimming. So it's only the little red piece of pie there, which are the ones that didn't find they had any benefit from it. And so as yet, we haven't managed to do any clinical studies on medical conditions, but for the book, what was the best part for me about writing the book was hearing people's stories. There are a lot of people out there who've done it, and these are kind of ordinary people with ordinary lives, but I think their stories are just extraordinary. They've been through so much. And I'll just go through a few of them now. So we cover most of those conditions. So on the right here, that's Rob. Now Rob is Rob's businessman. I've known him for many years, but it's only when I interviewed him for the book, and I swam for him for many years, I knew that it helped his Crohn's disease, having cold water swimming. But I didn't know the full extent of his story until I started interviewing him for the book. And when he was in his early 20s, he was so he was so ill from his Crohn's, he couldn't walk up the steps to his parents' house, the steps outside his parents' house. He was a physical wreck. And over the years, so he was eventually diagnosed with Crohn's, and he was taking a whole bag of, extraordinary levels of steroids, and not the good type of steroids that make you strong, the type that dampen down your inflammatory response. And he found, but he wanted to do something. So he started thinking, he set up a charity. He said, I'm going to swim across the English Channel to raise money for disadvantaged kids or whatever. And so he started swimming in the sea, and he noticed, so this is complete coincidence, he noticed that his symptoms of his Crohn's were getting better. And then he stopped taking his pills and he found, actually, I don't need my pills anymore. And then he stopped swimming and didn't take his pills, and it got worse again and came out. And so eventually worked out, so he was able to throw all his pills away and has remained pretty much pill-free ever since. And then, so this guy who, when he was 20, couldn't walk up the steps to his parents' house, last year, he actually completed an Ironman. So it's just an extraordinary transformation. As he said, it's transformed every aspect of who I am. On the right here, we have Candice. That's another friend of mine. Again, I knew that she'd been through a lot. She had 3 tumors in her brain, benign tumors, fortunately, but still, that's a hell of a lot of neurosurgery and a hell of a lot of just general disturbance to physiology. And her issue after her first or second surgery, I mean, well, she had like 17 operations, but after the first tumor was removed, was that the cortisol levels, the cortisol known as the stress hormone, were all over the place. And she's going to go on to yet another treatment, and she's just feeling awful. Taking cortisol, it was the same stuff that Rob was taking. You just feel awful with it. And she said to her endocrinologist, no, just give me a chance. I'm just going to try cold water swimming. I still don't know why she actually decided at that point to try the cold water swimming. But again, within days or weeks, she was better and she didn't need the steroids. And then she had another operation which had the same effect, and then she just couldn't wait to get back into the sea. I mean, I think she writes so beautifully about it. She was able to hold my heavy body, carried me when I was tired, didn't let me fall, let me float and cruise, and describing it as champagne in your veins. I mean, that's fantastic. And that really is what it feels like. And then here in the green cap here, we have Martin. Now, Martin was on one of our courses, joined one of our courses in Devon, one of our first courses. He joined because he says he's always been anxious. So he joined because he read, it was a course about anxiety and depression, but he also suffers from fibromyalgia. And he noticed, quite by chance, that the symptoms of his fibromyalgia were getting better. And, like with all these things, it's not necessarily a cure. And it's probably a bit wrong of me to call the book the cold water cure, but it certainly helps a lot. And what it seems to do is it takes people from a kind of a dysfunctional level to a functional level. And he noticed his symptoms getting better, and his anxiety improved, but also his fibromyalgia improved. And this is one of his comments I keep coming back to is, he said the course, or getting in the sea, made him feel alert, alive, with a sense of euphoria and achievement. And although pills, the effect of a pill might be a bit like that, actually the act of taking a pill does not give you that feeling. There's no pill that gives you that feeling. Whereas the act of this kind of therapy, if you like, getting in the sea, that really just takes you to a different level. This is Grant. Now, Grant has suffered from a really bad multiple slip discs, back nerve problems. He was a cyclist, potentially a professional cyclist when he was young, but he particularly loved surfing. And again and again, his back kept on going, and to the extent where he couldn't do any of these things. He cut himself off from the surfing community, which he loved, because it was just too painful for him to go out, both physically and mentally. And again, he was depressed. He was at the point of saying to his GP, God, I need a referral into mental health services. This is just too bad. And chronic pain services, because he just wasn't coping. But then he saw about the course, and he said, well, his other comment is, and I think this is a really interesting one, is that pain is a lonely place. And there he was, painful because he couldn't join in. And, so he went and joined one of the courses. And so on these courses, the thing about cold water swimming is always better done with people, and generally people do it with other people. So you get that feeling, so you're not alone in that respect. And then it had the effect on his mental health, on his mental well-being. He became better. And also, just like Martin, he started noticing improvement in his pain and improvement in his functionality from daily life. And now, you know, instead of taking drugs, he's got this little secret pool somewhere on Dartmoor, and he says, yeah, the chill pool is my tramadol now. This is Beth. Beth is a migraine sufferer, and oh my God, does she suffer with migraines. You know, there's one thing, she's sort of having 27 days a month, 28, it might be 28 days a month with migraine. And this is really bad migraine. It's not a bad headache, it's a migraine. It's considered by the WHO as bad as a day with a migraine, as bad as being a tetraplegic or paraplegic or something. I mean, it's truly awful. And she was suffering. She had to give up a PhD because she just couldn't get to university enough to do it. But she wasn't one to sit around and feel sorry for herself. She thought, well, what can I do? Yeah, what can I just got to do something? And she read about just being out in nature, and how that helps things. And so again, she didn't go to cold water swimming for her migraine. She went out. She just went out she wanted to get out into nature, out and about. And to do this, she and her partner, boyfriend at the time, her husband now, decided, well, let's try and see what we can do. Let's go for a swim in the sea and try and do that for 100 days. And he's a filmmaker, so they thought, oh, let's make a film about it. And they did. And in the process, she, like the others, by coincidence, found that it really helped her migraines. And even to the extent, that by the end of it, she was able to go back and restart her PhD. And there were days when she couldn't actually get to the sea. And there's this great footage. I mean, it must have been awful for her. But yeah, footage of her in the film just getting into the bath, and she sort of gets into the bath and just, oh God, this is so good. It's helping so much. So yeah, I think there is, I'll come on to this, but yeah, there's more to cold water swimming than the cold, but this demonstrates how there is a unique effect of the cold. And this is Rachel. Rachel's an amazing woman. She had a hard childhood. She fell into a really bad group, and really traumatic childhood. And she's had an awful time of it. And it's got a list of mental health of diagnoses, and including post-traumatic stress disorder. And one day she was visiting her parents. This is about 3-4 years ago. She was visiting her parents up in Edinburgh and decided to join everyone for the New Year's Day swim at Portobello Beach. She went in and she thought, again, she came out and said, oh, this feels so good. She kind of felt so much better than she had for so many years. And she was so moved about it when she moved back. She lives in Wales. When she moved back, when she went back after the holidays, she sent out a Facebook thing or something, social media, and so anyone wants to come for a swim, and a few people turned up, and more people turned up week after week. She found her mental health improving, but also she found with time this group got larger and larger, and she founded Mental Health Swims. And so this group is, it's nationwide. They train up lifeguards, as it were. I mean, it's all about just turning up. So the chill course that we've been running in Devon, that's kind of quite directed. You come along, you've got people in the water with you, coaches with you, and things like this. Whereas Mental Health Swims is more of a kind of ad hoc thing. And what happens there, and none the worse for it. But what happens there is you turn up, and you just turn up on the beach. There'll be a big flag there, and you join other like-minded people, and you just go for a swim, or you sit on the side, you look after the towels, whatever. But it gives you a sense of community, and it gives you a feeling of safety for being in the water. And it's helped. There are hundreds of groups, thousands of people every week going in, and it's just a fantastic achievement that she has put this together off the back of that one swim and then that one Facebook post. It's a fantastic resource for mental health, I think. So what we got here then with cold water swimming is something that works. I think it's good to think of it not, as I said, not just as a treatment, but also as kind of a more of a general tool for well-being. And it goes well under the concept, the growing concept of lifestyle medicine. And as you see from this slide, the tenets of lifestyle medicine are physical activity, manage stress, form and maintain relationships, improve sleep, and avoid risky substances. In fact, interestingly, I know of at least 2 instances where people have used cold water swimming to give up drugs. So it does work for that as well. And also it's kind of a high in itself, as anyone, I'm sure many of you have done. As any of you know, you get a high. In fact, that was another thing Chris said to me after his first swim. He said, "Oh God, if this was a drug, they'd make it illegal." And anyway, so so it does all these things. It doesn't help on the healthful eating. You've got to admit your limits somewhere. You go out afterwards, you have coffee and cake. That's not healthful eating, but it does feel good. Anyway, but what you do get from cold water swimming is all those other aspects: community, exercise, all these things that we know are good. It's autonomy, a sense of self worth, and self-control. The blue therapy, the green therapy, and of course, with that, the benefits of the cold.